Okay. Do, 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 do. Colin, if there's room in the headline, can you say dash with Steve Grumbine?
Yeah. And you're
If
live also.
Yeah, if not, just put it in the description. All right. Hello, folks. Jordan Sheridan, Status Coup. Hope everybody's having a nice Tuesday, end of August 2021. Um, you know, where do you even begin? Where do you begin? You have Biden and his press conference, declaring an end to the Afghanistan war. Cautiously optimistic. I know it's a sin these days to credit Biden, a Democrat, anyone with a D next to the name for anything, even if it's things we've traditionally demanded. At the moment, I think he deserves credit for ending the war. The fine print needs to be followed in terms of, how many private contractors are staying there, how many American troops known as advisors, special advisors, will be staying there, and all that. So, but as of now, I think it's a great thing that we're ending that war. Doesn't mean victory laps, because I haven't heard any talk about cutting our military budget in half now that we have this war ending. We still have crippling sanctions on Russia, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, to name a few. So the military industrial complex is alive and well, despite ending this war. But, it is a very good thing to finally end that war that we should have, frankly, probably never even started. Since, as we've talked about here with experts and amongst ourselves, 9/11, 9/11 was hatched out of Saudi Arabia. Most of the 15 out of 19 hijackers were Saudi Arabian. Um, why credit and not what next? Why credit and not what next? I mean, what's wrong with crediting a president if they do something good? I don't understand this mentality. I can't even get into it. I spend too much time fighting with nihilists in the chat, so it's okay to credit people if they've done something good. It doesn't mean you love them. So that's going on, the end of the Afghanistan war. We also have California is on fire. Colin, if you have that tweet showing Tahoe, it basically looks pink out in California right now. It is burning. Um, so from Tahoe is burning, and the wildfires out of control. Then you have the hurricane, the fallout in Louisiana. New Orleans hit again very badly. Power out for most of New Orleans and other parts of Louisiana. Here's Tahoe, uh, Lake Tahoe. I mean, it's like out of a dystopian horror flick. The sky is pinkish orange. This is from the climate catastrophe. Not to mention, you notice that these hurricanes are happening more, faster, like stronger winds, more regular, more powerful. Cities can't handle it. I mean, eh, this it's just a mess. But in addition to the war winding down, which again, yes, it's okay. You could credit Biden for it. Doesn't mean you're not a leftist. Doesn't mean you should be canceled. Um, this mentality of well, they're doing what they should do, so why are we going to give them flowers? Well, if it's so easy for you to criticize, why wouldn't it be as easy to compliment if they do something good? It doesn't mean they're not a warmonger. It doesn't mean they're not a corporate shill. I just don't get it. This mentality is so destructive on the left. Anyway, smash that like button. Share this live stream. We're going to have Steve Grumbine coming on in just a few minutes, because while all this is going on, the withdrawal from Afghanistan, the Louisiana hurricane, the Tahoe and other parts of California burning down. Let's also not forget Starbucks just filed yesterday. Buffalo workers that work for Starbucks in Buffalo are filing for a union election in Buffalo. I'm thinking we will go there on the ground at some point, because while we're there in Buffalo covering the Starbucks union drive, we could also cover socialist India Walton's run for mayor in Buffalo. So I'm thinking we might try to do that. I've always wanted the wings. Try the wings too. I've never been there. You also have the Nabisco workers strike rapidly spreading all over the country to bakeries in Oregon, Virginia, Colorado, Georgia, Chicago. You also have window cleaners who went on strike. Just got a contract. Now just got a new contract as a result, and are now the second highest paid window cleaners company, I guess, in the country. You also have Massachusetts. I believe it is. Let me check to confirm. I believe it's healthcare workers are on strike now in Massachusetts. So that is even better. Let me make sure I got that right. Hold on. Massachusetts nurses filed their 8th unfair labor practice charge against Tenet Healthcare today, alleging that the multi-billion-dollar corporation is illegally attempting to coerce and intimidate nurses to undermine their strike. St. Vincent nurses have been on strike for 177 days. I didn't even know that. So I got to tell you, folks, I know there's a lot of infighting and doom and gloom on the left. There are good things happening right now, because no leftist movement throughout history has ever done anything without a strong labor movement or without strong coordination with the labor movement. So this is very positive, if you ask me. But why I wanted to have Steve on, and he's joining me in a minute, is if you don't know, but September 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 6 days from now, federal unemployment will expire. The unemployment expansion will expire for estimated 7.5, 8 million Americans. Many states have already ended it, but federally, it will end. This happening as we're getting propaganda from the New York Times and elsewhere that the economy is booming. So who better to have on than the MMT wizard himself, Steve Grumbine. So before I bring Steve on, please smash that like button, share this live stream. Got 150 people. Let's get it up to 500 if we can today. Important things to talk about. I'm also going to talk about, gee whiz, there's a problem with transparency in the state of Michigan. Shocking. Problem with transparency in the state of Michigan, the state that poisoned its people and then covered it up, and there still has been no justice. So without further ado, Steve Grumbine of Real Progressives joining us. How you doing, Steve?
I'm good, man. How are you, sir?
Good. And full disclosure, I asked him about a half hour before this. I've actually been working on digging through. I've been digging through some documents today, so I didn't even know if I was going to do a live stream. But Steve's my go-to for whether I had time to plan or not. But I did see this article this morning, Steve. I want to start with this article. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the headline should tell you all. New York Times: the economy is booming, but far from normal, posing a challenge for Biden. High inflation, ghostly downtowns, and a resurgent virus have rattled consumers and created new obstacles as the president tries to push his broader economy. If you look kind of at the beginning of this story, I don't know if you have it, Colin, that you could put it up, the New York Times story. The American economy is growing at its fastest clip in a quarter century. And they link, I guess, the data showing it's growing at the fastest clip in a quarter century. Yet it remains far from normal, with some workers and small business owners facing increasingly tough times while others thrives. Steve, I don't know about you, but I think part of the reason we have the corrupt status quo that we do is because we have a media that kind of creates this alternative economy that is thriving and is booming based on numbers that, Alan Greenspan or, I don't know, what's his face, that devilish person for Reagan, who was the father of trickle down. I forget his name. Basically, they create this propaganda about what is the measurement for an economy booming and what is the mechanism for an economy sinking. When in reality, I don't know. I go out in the country. I haven't spoken with every American. It's not booming. I don't know what's they're citing as far as the fastest clip of a quarter of a century, but can you kind of straighten it out? What numbers do show a boom, and what is the reality in terms of whether the economy? Art Laffer, thank you very much. Whether the economy is booming.
Just remember, GDP is an indiscriminate number, and GDP measures all activity, period, right? And so it doesn't measure whether or not it's happening at the bottom, doesn't matter whether it's happening in Wall Street, doesn't matter if it's happening in the school system, in the health care industry, doesn't matter where it's happening. It's a sum of all income, the nation's income. And so because so much stimulus money, so much deficit spending has occurred, you naturally see a huge boom. It is in many ways, it's a good sign that money is making the economy. The problem is, as usual, that we don't look at how that disbursement goes. We only look in aggregates. We don't look at the demographics of where it's being spent. And so the reason why you don't see any real meaningful change in Main Street is because that's not where the money's being spent at. In fact, Main Street is starving while the money is going in top, and it's still once again trickle down economics. Every bit of it is. And so one of the other things, if you're into watching convergences happen, you watch as people want to get back into the world. They want to get back out there to go, eating and going to the movies, going to concerts, while simultaneously they're at home, not wanting to get, unmasked or whatever, and they're not working. And so you've got a convergence where people want to get out and do things, where people aren't working, and they're trying to figure out why there's all these problems. So you see inflation. Well, what does inflation usually represent? No, it does not mean they printed money. Anyone says that, seriously, stop. It means that there's not enough of the real goods and services out there. And it's driving the price up because there's so much demand for it, and there's not enough way to actually achieve it. So in the article that you're referencing, it also talks about how there's these ghost towns Monday through Friday where they expected people back to the office. Well, just today, Governor Wolf finally instituted making schools mandate masks on the children. I mean, we're talking about we're going back down into this thing because the spiking of the COVID virus is back up. And all the fools want to sit there and talk about it being a hoax and stuff. Get out of here with that crap too. This is very serious stuff. And so part of what you're watching, again, we got the trickle down mindset. The other thing that we're watching is this fake idea that we can go back out and live our lives while simultaneously the supply chain and the workers are not back to actually meet the demand. So what does that do? That jacks the price up. So this is the perfect storm. And now what's going to make it even worse is that while the wealthy are doing really freaking good right now, and they are kicking ass, man, they are doing fantabulous. The people that are about to lose their unemployment are about to be even worse. And mind you, the moratorium on evictions was overturned by the Supreme Court. And do not dare blame the Supreme Court for that. That is a problem of your Congress not writing laws to affect the people once again. So every one of the laws that was passed, all these good news stories that we felt were all done at the top. And everyone at the bottom is left once again to suffer as this weight comes crashing down on all of our heads. So this is a real important time to start watching and understanding how the economy really works, divorcing ourselves from the myths and tales from the fire pit, and starting to really, really pay attention, because this is your opportunity, friends. Really start fighting for this stuff. The next thing that's going to come close is the mortgage moratorium, which will end at the end of October. So now you're talking about evictions for renters. Then you're talking about mortgages. You're talking about ending unemployment, and that's all to get you guys back to the workforce. There's nothing good in this story, Jordan. I wish I could give you one good news story here. It is not a good news story. In fact, they've made enough people happy, fat, and whole that it's going to leave us desperate, because there's nobody going to take this on. Bernie's 3.5 expansion of the reconciliation bill for infrastructure. There's a lot of blue collar work in there that could help bring people into, back out and working. Same with even the shitty $1 trillion bill, even though it's got a lot of really bad public-private partnership privatization. That has the potential to put a few people back to work as well. But ultimately, there's not a whole lot good here going on, man. Not a whole lot good at all. And folks are not paying attention. So
And
hopefully
by the
this will
way, cheese
bring it to it.
sandwich. Cheese sandwich says this Grumbine guy could run for office. So there you go. Colin, could you show that tweet? Because you mentioned the Supreme Court. I agree with you. I mean, I didn't expect the Supreme Court to uphold the eviction moratorium. But in their argument, when they struck it down, it was so, I mean, it just speaks for itself. Here's what the Supreme Court said when they struck down the eviction moratorium. Could the CDC, for example, mandate free grocery delivery to the homes of the sick or vulnerable, require manufacturers to provide free computers to enable people to work from home, order telecommunication companies to provide free high-speed internet service to facilitate remote work? So forget the legalese of whether they could or not. I always call the CIA capitalism's invisible army. It wasn't my idea. I stole that from somebody. But is the Supreme Court not just capitalism's protective judge? I mean, this in itself. Oh, can we do good things? Can we mandate good things for the sick or vulnerable, or help educate people by law? I mean, I don't know what you think about that, but I thought that was striking in their argument.
Just remember this. On the off chance that the Supreme Court decided to be, legislating from the bench or whatever, and they do it all the time anyway, right? But on the off chance that they actually were the primary one responsible for this, I mean, there's so many ways that they could do this, but ultimately all the laws are written with the idea of protecting capital to begin with. So their job is to interpret the law and to to legislate or to judge the law, to weigh it out. Legislative branch is the one supposed to write the damn law, and the legislative branch always writes laws protecting capital, protecting private property, protecting anything but we the people. And for those people who somehow or another in the back of their mind think that private property is we the people, I don't know about you, but even the wealthiest of my friends don't have, quote unquote, the kind of private property I'm talking about that is protected by these laws. I mean, we're literally being sold out, and there's literally no protection for us at all. I mean, zero. This is probably about as bad as I've seen it. And I've been trying really hard to find the good news and everything lately, just because it's so depressing to be focused nonstop on the negative. But this is literally where the rubber meets the road. I heard you talking, before I jumped on about the unions and stuff like that. And that's a great thing 10 years too late. I mean, it's great that it's happening, but things are happening right here, right now. And we don't have organizing power to address it. We really don't. And
Right.
There's just not enough focus on it to really impact it the way it needs to be impacted. We got probably right here, right now with the evictions and the, what do you call it? The
Unemployment.
Thank you. And the unemployment, that in and of itself creates a major problem. Now, with it looking like things are going to start locking down a little bit more, even, you're looking at those businesses that were thinking about reopening, not having any business once again, probably laying people off once again. It doesn't take a whole lot to see how this unfolds.
And by the way,
you
Steve, I just want to point out, I'm not going to say who, but I have a person in my life now, and I know other people where their companies are recklessly telling them to come in with COVID symptoms. Don't tell people if you have COVID. So it's not just that the overall numbers economically are artificial. The exploding growth is not going to, Mr. and Mrs. Joe taxpayer, but a lot of companies, whether it be restaurants, bars, hospitals, are currently endangering their workers as this virus spreads out of control.
I got to tell you, the place I work, and I'm not going to say it, but the place I work, they have been extremely responsible. It's one of the very few times where I tip my hat to a company. I mean, I even talked to the CEO the other day, and I thanked him for being just a really decent guy. How often do you get to do that? It's not often, but they deserve it because they really have stood tall in this. But you look around here, and that's not the case. It's not the case. So in fact, you look at the school board meetings where they were talking about bringing kids back to school, and to see the Battlestar Moronica of our country fighting to let little kids in kindergarten go into school in a pandemic without masks is a level of stupidity I just can't put a word to. The amount of rage that I have inside me that those people even exist is beyond anything I can even put words to, Jordan. You know, you and I both know the ravages of COVID firsthand, and Jen definitely understands it. And to see kids who are not capable of getting the vaccine right now being thrown in there while parents are playing political games to keep them unmasked. All I can say is thank God Governor Wolf was able to put the mask mandate back in place here in Pennsylvania. But it's going to have a deep impact on the economy. And I see nothing that indicates the federal government understands this. I know Biden does understand. I know he does because I know people advising him firsthand. And I know damn well that he knows the story. I know guys like John Yarmouth are very fluent and understand the story. I believe Bernie Sanders has started really, truly understanding the economic narrative after all these years. So I do believe there are people in there that do know, but it's too little too late. I mean, people are really going to suffer here, brother.
Yeah, I know. I know. I only have you for a little while, so I didn't want to. I agree with you. I just did a whole show on this yesterday because, tell you the truth, I mean, everybody's an armchair doctor these days, but I don't understand. Forget death for a second. Even if you want to argue that it's a lot less likely for children to die than adults. Well, you want to sign your blood that you know the long-term effects on children who get this coronavirus, how it affects their body, their cognitive development. Children's minds, bodies are not fully formed typically till 20, 21. Some children are different, with extenuating special needs. So we don't know what the long-term effects of children having this. Yeah, you could say the long-term effects of children not having the interaction and their social skills and whatever is very damaging. But we're in unprecedented times, so you got to choose between multiple terrible options, and which one is the less. This is the lesser of two evils right now because we're talking life or death. So you have to choose. You're a parent, I'm not, but you have to choose between. If a building was burning, you would not bring your kids into it. So if a building has rapid contagion, I don't know why there would be a different thought, because frankly, it's not only that children can get it and we don't know the long-term effects. It is being shown that in Delta variant, and there's a lot of research showing this, children spread it quicker than adults do, and easier than adults do. So the children that then leave those schools are aiding community spread. So it's crazy to me. And the other thing, frankly, is, MMT, we could create a lot of different versions of schooling. Maybe in some cases it would be in person, where it's like you don't have everybody congregate in person, but you have children coming in, throughout the day. You separate them, pods, ventilation, things like that. None of that's being done, particularly in Florida. I can tell you that. So it's just outrageous. But the other thing, Steve, is we right now, as this is spreading out of control, could do what we should have done a year and a half ago, which is tell people to go home. We're going to we're going to put give each American a debit card, refill it right now for, let's say, 2 months for your rent, your other costs, stop the spread, and be done with it. But we refuse because capitalism.
Yep. Well, we did a show about a year ago, ironically, with Pavlina Chernova, and Pavlina is the job guarantee queen. And it was all about nationalizing employment, nationalizing payroll. For however long we needed a nationalized payroll, we could have literally made sure every business had no excuse not to pay their people. Whatever your salaries, F it, you get paid that, stay at home for however long we're going to do this. We could have easily done that for a short time. We could have easily done that. And ultimately we did not do that. And part of the thing is that you go around and you look at how much of this information actually makes it to people, and it's so little. You still see people saying, hey, why don't we go back to work? Hey, we need jobs. Or, they're not really thinking through any of the problems, because this information doesn't get past that wall of mainstream media. It doesn't break through to the other side. And just not enough people are listening to this stuff. But sadly, we could be doing this, and we should be doing this. I mean, if you and I had enough money in this short time to pay our electric bill, to buy our bread, to pay for our car payments, to do whatever, the entire system of things that matter to us could stay alive. The flip side to that is that, as edgy as it sounds to be, hey, let's burn it down. Well, I hope you're ready to pay for the lives with that. You don't have something on the other side of that. People are not organized. So it's not like burn it down and you've got something waiting to save people. There's not even real mutual aid networks out. There's a few. There's people thinking about it finally, but there's nowhere near enough. So all of these people are going to suffer without a net, without a government net, or without even a revolutionary net. And it's in that moment when fuck them, they're all edgy now, but they're not organized, and they will not organize, partially because there's not a good enough communication path to get everybody together. But as you know, as you've talked to Afeni the other day, the left is not willing to work together. The left is just too cool for school, and it's too divided, and it's got too many little.
You want to know why? Because the
left
is way more focused on defining who is the left than organizing.
Yep.
I mean, that's the truth. I mean, listen, Saul Alinsky, who was, made into a boogeyman when Obama run. He wrote Rules for Radical. I'm almost done with it. He got some shit because he was what they called a pragmatic revolutionist. But you want to know what? He got a lot of shit done for communities. Okay.
Yep. Lenin was a pragmatic one too. Lenin was just as pragmatic. Lenin was not just run off to the thing and.
So for the people saying burn it down, okay, but when you burn it down, do you have an organized system to rebuild it into the image you want? Because right now, the most organization I'm seeing, and I talked about it before you came on, was, hey, is it the complete organized system of mutual aid and workers together we need? No, but right now, about every week, I see a new strike popping up in America. For 10 to 20 years, labor was dead. There was no strikes in America, big strikes. There was no union drives in America. So this, the baby has a pulse here, the baby being us, the workers. Yep. And to me, if you want to burn it all down, that's fine. If you want to say we're never voting again, to hell with electoral politics, I don't agree with that, but so be it. But I don't really see any strategy. This, for example, this general strike on October 15th, it's a start. I'm not going to poo-poo that. But what are they doing to create an infrastructure beyond that one day?
Yeah, this is always the problem. You see all the different symbology that we got: symbols, hats here, berets there, flags here, buttons there, signs up in the air. But as soon as the event is over, it's over. There is no real meaningful follow through, right? And, whenever you think about making demands are only demands when they have teeth, when they can be executed upon. And if you don't have any real demands, then you have nothing. And the worst part is that when you do make demands, there's always the centrist apologist out there yelling at you that by making demands, you're a bad guy. And you see all the shows belly aching about people that stand to their guns about making demands. But if you don't make a demand, you're not going to get anything. And if you make a demand, you're going to get torn down by your own. So, it's crabs in a barrel. So I don't know how to go with it.
To me, I think the problem on the left right now is people are conflating basically bashing politicians all day with making a demand. And those are two different things.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely.
people don't believe me. I don't really care who you support. I just covered a protest outside AOC's office a few weeks ago. I actually thought it was good.
You were there too. Yep.
Yeah. I thought it was good. I thought the people that spoke, they weren't screaming, hashtag, fraud squad, you're a fraud, you're a sellout. They were screaming like, we want to be behind you, but you need to, and I think that's great.
Susan Sarandon, she said, I believe in you. Come on, show me, make me, come on, I believe in you. You can do it.
I mean, I don't really care if you organize a primary against AOC, if you want to. I mean, to me, I think there's too much focus on AOC, Bernie, and these people as if these are the single beings keeping Medicare for all and things away from you. It doesn't mean they're beyond criticism. I sure have criticized them. But
TMZ politics.
But to me, I mean, you're seeing in practice, this is the first actual, as coordinated as it has gotten in the last 40 years, after Reagan and then Bill Clinton and then Alec, and then, all of these forces came together to destroy labor, to suck the wind out of any worker revolt. You're seeing it in real time. Go look. You see all these YouTube channels doing as many videos on these strikes. You see them interviewing these workers. For example, I just interviewed a Starbucks worker who's organizing in Buffalo. I knew it wasn't going to get any views. I did it because I should. I might go up. I might go up there. So I don't want to get too off course because I know I only have you for a little bit. But to me, the biggest thing is here, I think we're headed into this perpetual cycle because we're already in the midterm cycle. I mean, Labor Day is coming after that. We'll be focused on, Congress is at gridlock. We're already into midterm season, this and that. And the Democrats will, to avoid the economic disaster that they're not really doing anything about, will keep the focus on Trump and January 6th and come out because we can't give it back to Trump and Marjorie Greene Taylor. So all be these kind of, true issues. The right is scary and dangerous and growingly insane, but they're going to try and paper over. Their messaging will be, save our majority. Don't worry if we didn't do anything substantively other than, 1.9 trillion shots in your arm, whatever. Because of that, and there will be very little focus on what is now the economic Hunger Games. Evictions have already started. Tomorrow, September 1st, they're going to expedite tenfold. Unemployment's up in 6 days. You mentioned the mortgage expiration. We didn't even talk about the student loan expiration. Everybody's dancing that there's been a little extension. Well, they're not going to extend it that much longer. We didn't even talk about the housing bubble that is now forming. So there is a calamity coming, folks. There's a calamity coming, and the corporate media will paper over it with articles about the booming economy. And maybe some months unemployment will go down lower and they'll have good GDP numbers and declare everything, rainbows and sunshine. But things are coming.
Let me just say this real quick to finish off on this, because the bubble is really important to know. As people get thrown out of their homes, BlackRock has already got a business model of buying up these houses. And you want to talk about when you have no choice but to rent from BlackRock? We're getting to a really, really dangerous place, folks.
Right.
And, the work that we're doing over there with the con and with the new Untouchables is all about this. And I'm hoping, I'm not here to even plug the show. I'm here to tell you, this is not, infotainment, folks. You're about to live this disaster. Your family's going to live this disaster. Your friends are going to live this disaster. And really, unless we organize around these issues, not some nefarious, some other bullshit thing that somebody else thought, oh, wouldn't it be neat? These are the real material disasters coming your way right now. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in Mississippi and Louisiana during this.
Right. And before you came on, by the way, Tahoe is orange from the fires. Louisiana right now, I'm sure there's going to be more hurricanes in Florida and elsewhere, stronger, more regular. I wanted to ask you real quick. I know you got to go, but squeeze this in. This is counter to what you preach, because obviously we just printed money to be in Afghanistan and it was all a scam. Taxpayers did not pay for that war. I'm glad, at least surface level, we're gutting out. And, I'm crediting Biden for that. I know it's bad to do that. But by the Democratic Party's standard of we got to pay for everything, well, you're just taking something big off the books. I mean, obviously, we know it doesn't work that way, but playing their mental game, we're taking a big overhead off the books, folks. $300 million a day, 20 years. So I'm pretty sure there's money in there for free public college tuition, for universal health care, for
Lumbo game. We got them. You're exactly right. I mean, if you just want to play sheer like household budget stuff, they just proved in spades we got tons of money waiting for this, right?
But I hear no discussion. On, let's dramatically cut the military budget because we don't have an active war. let's take this money and put it XYZ.
Yeah, I hate to say this, and you know that where I'm going with this, but cutting the military budget without literally immediately having a spending bill to offset that cut, to put that money back in, would create a recession on top of all the other stuff that would really devastate us all. I know that people don't realize that because they don't really think in terms of macro and aggregates. But if you don't have that money spent into the economy, even that trickle, even that little trickle right there, we will feel that in a way that that would devastate us. And we have to have a replacement for that money. That money, it should be domestic spending. It should be public purpose spending to enhance our lives, to keep us whole, to offset for, the horrors of climate change, to prepare for immigrant migrations into the nation, to run away from coastal communities that are going to be underwater, things like that. These are very real things that money could do, and we could even grow it more. We could double and triple it. I mean, there's nothing to stop us from doing that. And we have the real resources to, in fact, do that. So it is quite devastating to know that they will not do that, even though it just makes all the sense in the world. We just got 300 million a day. Hey, let's do it. They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it, Jordan. And sadly, most of our audiences collectively probably don't realize that we could do better either, even though you've probably said it. A lot of people, you say this out loud and they don't really hear. It doesn't really penetrate. They hear it surface level, and then they're off to the next subject, whatever that is, where the next live that pops up, they're off to that subject. This is one of those ones where you got to lock your heels into the dirt and don't let go and hold on to this subject and stay focused on this subject, because it will not happen on its own. It's
Right.
got to be purpose driven. And that's my parting plea with you, brother.
And by the way, I'll just end this. It's not a question. All these people with all this shit about inflation, which, you do have to take the temperature of that and change course if it's real inflation. They seem to only care about inflation that helps working people, but the actual day-to-day 30-year inflation, which is gentrification, i.e. economic terrorism, which is driving up rental, home prices, milk, just to breathe in the neighborhood you grew up in, that inflation, that's urban renewal. So I just find that interesting, Steve. But
I agree, brother.
I know you got to go. Thank you for joining short notice.
You
Steve Grumbine's Real Progressives.
Anytime.
Check them out. Where can they find you?
Come to our website at realprogressives.org. You want to find all of our media right under the media drop down. You'll find Macro and Cheese. You'll find the new Untouchables, MMT Mondays, and on our YouTube channel, Real Progress in Action. Please go there, subscribe. We've had Jordan and Jen on here recently. We just did a show on Macro and Cheese with Jordan directly. Lots of really good stuff. I hope you guys will check it out. And Jordan, as always, you're my main vine. I really appreciate you bringing me on. Let me get my word out too, buddy.
And I'm creating my own podcast called Mac and Sleaze.
Sounds good, bro. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Take care.
Yep. Stay safe.
So that's Steve Grumbine. I got a lot more to talk about, so don't go anywhere. Smash that like button. Want to read some super chats before we move on? And oh boy, I'm about to fucking pop my goddamn blood vessels on this next story. So don't go anywhere. John, $5. Keep up the work, comrade. Much love. Thank you. Emoji, $3. Thank you. VA from New York, $10. While we're trying to decipher medical advice, the elites have been waging counter-revolution, the largest upward transfer of wealth in history. Wealth has been transferring upward basically since the 1980s. So I don't know if you're talking about a specific bill or what have you. So you'd have to be more specific, but thank you so much for the super chat. Bad Mama Jama, $5. Really appreciate you bringing my man Grumbine on. He's going to drop the cold, hard, well-informed truths, whether you like it or not. Keep it up. That's why I have him on. He's very informative. Real Progressives, $5. Thanks again, Status Quo, for broadcasting the news and info that actually matters, as our corporate-owned media won't. Smash that like button and learn MMT. We thank you. We love Real Progressives. Check out what they're doing at their new podcast. Double K, $19.99. Thank you. D-Nord, $5. Appreciate it. Rose Ann Rabiola, $5. Would you make sense of insanity with evidence on Platinum Platter in the Con and the new Untouchables? Yes. check out the new Untouchables, which is Real Progressive's new podcast, I believe. Keep smashing that like button. Keep sharing. I also want to tell you, Colin, if you could put it up, we're at 1,876 Status Quo members. So we just had a awesome week last week. We thank you. We raised, I think, $9,000 something through our GoFundMe. So you guys delivered. We badly needed some cash based on the expenses that I outlined last week. So I thank you. Jen is appreciative too. But we also want to remind you, the core of our business is our membership. So we've kind of danced around 2,000 members now for a year. We were very close to 2,000 members before COVID hit. And unfortunately, we lost a lot of members, which is understandable. You know, people losing their jobs, hours cut, getting sick. But we also then, grew members. We've lost some members recently because apparently people cancel their membership if you don't feed them what they want to hear 24/7, which, whatever, don't be members. If you want to cancel your membership to the only people actually doing reporting in the field because we're not feeding you your nihilism on a silver plate, don't be members. I don't know what to tell you. But I just want to remind you, statusquo.com/join, become a member for $5 a month. You get access to our monthly members call, which I think we're going to try to do this week, if not early next week. You get access to bonus behind the scenes videos, and you support our in the field journalism. We want to get past 2,000 as soon as we can, just blow past it finally, and then the sky's the limit. So I wanted to move on to this next story because, wow, it's really something. So let me start before I get to current Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer and the just amazing, to me, corruption that's going on with what they're trying to do in terms of transparency. I want to read, Colin, if you have the Detroit Metro Times version of the story that I sent you. If you don't, because we co-published our recent Flint story in the Detroit Metro Times. So I want to read part of this because we have to start with what was going on under the Snyder administration in Michigan to what is now going on in the Whitmer administration. And frankly, this is not just Michigan, because there's a lot of fuckery going on in terms of government withholding documents, emails that should be released to the public as part of freedom of information requests. There is, frankly, to me, a lot of illegal things going on in terms of hiding documents, getting rid of documents. But for you to understand what's going on currently with Gretchen Whitmer, who the media has showered with affection, we got to move backwards to what happened under Snyder. So, Colin, if you have it, put it up. You have our story recently that we broke, the Flint water cover-up, that literally, you might have to go to page 3, Colin, because there's 3 pages on the Detroit Metro Times. The part I want to read to is on page 3. But literally, it's, a month and a half, no coverage, national media, no coverage, local media. I'm actually currently digging. I've decided, well, I could keep digging on the Flint water cover-up, but if the media is going to black it out, maybe I should start digging on the media. So we're going to dig on the media because, frankly, something is not right here. We know the corporate media is corrupt, but it is really, really at the point of blinking red light scandal that the local media in Michigan and the national media is burying a massive cover-up here. In my view, the biggest cover-up of the 21st century. And you have to start following the money on who's paying the media. So I'm working on that behind the scenes. But I want to read this part from the story we just broke. Soon after state departmental timelines were allegedly falsified, this is from Governor Snyder's top officials, were basically fudging timelines of what happened during the Flint water crisis that departments made. So the health department, environmental department, they created timelines, and Snyder's top officials basically just put in false shit. Soon after state departmental timelines were allegedly falsified, and around the same time that Snyder's questionable internal Flint water investigations were underway, Snyder administration officials voiced concern about pressure they were receiving to improperly withhold Flint water documents they felt should have been released to the public in response to significant volume of freedom of information requests, The Intercept learned. So, in a nutshell, you have a water crisis, people are sick, people are getting, rashes, hair loss, children getting sick. You have people dying of Legionnaire's disease. So, a lot of groups, a lot of organizations put in freedom of information requests. They want the emails, communications between Snyder, his top officials, the health department, the environmental department, to know who knew what when. Who knew what when. So, reading further here, if after releasing his own personal emails, which news outlets noted were largely unrelated to the water crisis and heavily redacted, Snyder told Congress that, quote, relevant documents from different state agencies would be released so that the public could have an, quote, open, honest assessment of what happened. So if you live in Michigan, you know, and if you don't live in Michigan, you should know, in the state of Michigan, the governor's office is not subject to freedom of information requests. So let me repeat, in Michigan, Snyder, Whitmer, they're not part of freedom of information requests. So you cannot issue freedom of information requests for the governor and anybody in his office communications in Michigan. That is still the case under the Democratic governor, Gretchen Whitmer. Gee, I wonder why people get poisoned by water and there's never justice. I wonder why, frankly, we'll get to Whitmer in a minute, there's scandals under Whitmer where you can't get all the facts because you can't FOIA their emails or communications. So reading further, but some officials within Snyder's administration felt pressured to do exactly the opposite. 1 week after Snyder's congressional testimony, Georgia Schuler, one of several worker analysts with the Department of Technology, Management, and Budget, she was tasked with combing through Flint water emails to determine which one should be released to the public in response to the FOIA request. This analyst, in a nutshell, she and others had to go through all these Flint emails to determine which one should be released as part of the FOIA request and which one should not. She emailed her supervisor expressing serious concerns about the process for releasing Flint documents, emails obtained by The Intercept show. Schuler wrote her supervisor that during a meeting about the Flint water emails, she and other analysts were tasked with going through to evaluate which emails should be released. The employee leading the meeting told Schuler and other analysts they, quote, would not be held responsible if the documents ended up being missorted. Again, if you kind of, wrongly decide certain emails should be kept back, shouldn't be made public, we got your back. In plain English, don't release certain things. And if you don't, you'll be fine. And by the way, there were very specific, freedom of information requests. If you don't know, you put in specific terms, specific date ranges, all the people in a search range that you want their communications, people who sent emails to certain other people, received emails. So it's very specific. So Georgia Schuler, who was in Snyder's administration, was emailing her supervisor expressing concern that basically I'm being asked to do unethical, borderline illegal things and suppress information that should go public about the Snyder administration's role in the water crisis from going public. So Schuler responded to her supervisor basically saying, yeah, don't worry if you improperly withhold things, by saying she appreciated that, but a verbal assurance would not provide her protection from any issues that may arise from improperly holding back relevant emails from public release. Quote, and this is Schuler in an email to her supervisor, quote, that's when I asked if I could have an email to that effect, and she did not answer me and walked away. So supervisor's telling her to do something borderline illegal. Schuler intelligently says, well, your verbal statement to me will not protect me if people find out about this. So put it in writing. And of course, the supervisor would not. Schuler added that one of the meeting attendees replied to me that if your boss Quote, if your boss tells you to do something and you do it, you can't get in trouble for doing what you're told. The lawyer nodded, but I replied that that was not always true. And the meeting lawyer told me to stop talking. So let me make this crystal clear. She was basically being told to fudge things if there's particular emails that might criminally implicate the governor, his top officials. If you don't release them, we got your back. Okay. And then she said, okay, great. Put it in writing. Yeah, no. And the lawyer walked away as I pushed back. This is, by the way, Snyder's administration. I'm going to explain why it's now seems to be feeding into the Whitmer administration. Ultimately, Schuler said she was uncomfortable working on the FOIA project, Freedom of Information Act project, and asked to be excused, a request that was granted. Quote, if she determined an email was clearly not Flint related, but it was Flint related, she wasn't going to be held responsible for that. A former official with the Department of Technology, Management, and Budget told The Intercept. The process that determined which Snyder administration Flint water emails to release didn't stop at lower level analysts like Schuler. After Schuler and other analysts conducted initial reviews of thousands of Flint emails, the trove of documents they determined should be released under the Freedom of Information request would then move up the chain for a tier 2 review among department heads and communications staff. So Schuler starts it, other analysts like Schuler start it, and it then would move up to the top officials in the health department, the top officials in the environmental department, and they would, check if these emails that lower level people determined should be released based on the parameters of the FOIA request, they would determine if they should be released. So, and that was somebody involved with the process told us. But finally, the emails then went to the governor's office for final approval. One current and former official in the Department of Technology, Management, and Budget told us. So let me get this straight. Okay. There's a water crisis. People die. Federal investigation looming. There's already a state investigation. And the final arbiter of which emails will release to the public is the governor and his top officials that are currently under criminal investigation. That's literally what we're talking about here. So it's a definition of the police investigating themselves. In this case, the government investigating themselves and determining what should be made public and what should not be made public. It's corruption with a capital C. So potentially damaging emails were withheld by the governor's office. The former Department of Technology, Management, and Budget official alleged being told by that official's by the chief of staff of the Department of Management and Budget, Jean Ingersoll, who's still working within the Whitmer administration. She's now at the health department. Ingersoll, the ex-official with the Department of Technology, Management, and Budget, had told them that she attended a meeting in the governor's office where officials said that, quote, they would never be handing over some records. When the ex-DTMB official pushed back that the process seemed shady, Ingersoll reiterated the marching orders from the governor's office and said, quote, that's what we're going to do. The ex-official alleged to us. Ingersoll, now with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Service, acknowledged to The Intercept that she sat in, quote, 1 or 2 meetings in the governor's office about Flint water emails, but said, quote, I don't recall this conversation about controversial documents being withheld from the public. So let me give you a legal 101, folks. Let me give you a little legal 101. The go-to lawyered up response that lawyers tell their clients to tell, and I guarantee you she spoke with legal before she responded to me, I don't recall. Well, I'm pretty sure if you didn't sit in a meeting in Governor Rick Snyder's administration where they were openly saying, yeah, no, we're not giving over those damaging documents, pretty sure you'd recall that. Pretty sure. You'd recall that, right? But I don't recall, she says. The alleged attempt to withhold Flint-related emails continued a Snyder administration trend of concealing communications. In 2013, Richard Baird, Snyder's top advisor, who, by the way, our report last year helped lead to charges, criminal charges against him. So journalism does matter. In 2013, Baird and other Snyder officials used their private emails to communicate about a secret for-profit school model the Snyder administration planned on launching, ominously called Skunk Works. The move was par for the course for Baird, according to the former official with the Department of Technology Management and Budget, who alleged the governor's right-hand man once chided them for sending an email about Flint to his official Michigan government email. Quote, "Don't ever email me there. Always email me on my Hotmail account," Baird allegedly told the former DTMB official on a call soon after the official emailed his government email. Quote, "He never replied to the email. I think he was mad that I mentioned Flint in an email." The alleged command by Baird, again, governor's top advisor, considered in Michigan his henchman, the alleged command by Baird was in sync with his overall aversion to leaving a paper trail. Quote, "Trust me, amigo, emails are fodder for our enemies' cannons," Baird wrote to the ex-Flint emergency manager, Darnell Early, on March 13, 2015, in a text message that we obtained. Suggest you default to the phone call or got a minute, drop by approach. I learned this the hard way. I mean, this is literally cartoonish. Trust me, amigo, emails are fodders for our enemies' cannons. So, Jordan, you might be asking, okay, we get it. Snyder was evil. His administration was evil. They were pressuring officials to hold back emails that should have been released to the public. We have no idea if all the emails that should have been released to the public have been released. You got a current criminal investigation going on that, frankly, to me, is horrendous based on the reporting I've done. They have basically tanked the investigation. They have not charged people that should have been charged based on our reporting. They have charged Governor Snyder with a misdemeanor when the original investigation was ready to charge him with misconduct in office and was building a case towards involuntary manslaughter. But moving on, well, how does this bleed into the current Democratic governor that we know, the media has painted as some type of, heroine because she fought Trump on COVID and other things? Well, if you got this, Colin, memo: Whitmer's staff reviews FOIA requests even though she's exempt from the law. Whitmer's staff reviews FOIA requests even though she's exempt from the law. Governor Gretchen Whitmer is not subject to the Michigan Freedom of Information Act, which is scandalous in itself. And if you live in Michigan, you should stop paying your taxes, frankly, until you get government transparency all the way up to the top. But an internal memo shows her legal team is asking to review any communications from her office before they are released to the public by state departments that must follow the law. So in plain English, she's exempt. So her emails, her other staff's emails in her office are exempt. That doesn't mean their communications with officials from the health department, from the environmental department, from name your department that are not exempt from FOIA. Their communications with those people that are under the FOIA laws, those are supposed to be fair game. But Whitmer is basically saying to these departments, don't respond to FOIA requests without running it by our lawyers, meaning FOIA requests where there's communication with the governor and an outside agency, or the governor's top officials and an outside agency. Whitmer's spokesperson called the policy, get this, a good government approach to increase efficiency. Boy, is that a neoliberal pretzel twisting if I've ever heard one. And officials from the past administration Hold on. Officials from the past administration. Colin, do you hear that? Oh, is there an advertisement on this thing? Okay, it's gone. There was music in my ear. But called it a good government approach to increase efficiency, and officials from past administrations said governors' offices typically expected advance warnings before any sensitive disclosures. A leading open government advocate called the Whitmer memo, quote, problematic, however, because the review could further slow public record requests. And a conservative activist called Whitmer hypocritical, given her 2018 campaign promises to boost transparency in her office. In a memo first issued in July 2019 and revised in April, Whitmer's chief legal counsel, Mark Totten, directed department and agency directors to notify the governor's team when certain, quote, legal actions or developments arise, including pending public records disclosures involving Whitmer or staff. Quote, please provide the language of the actual request and a copy of all documents that include, quote, executive office communications, the memo states. So again, no different. No different at all than Snyder. We have governors, their officials deciding what the public should have access to and what the public shouldn't. So I don't know if you're the governor, if you're the governor's top officials, if there were certain emails that the media might pick up, your opponents might pick up, might give you some legal problems, I might tell the health department, the environmental department, whichever department outside of the governor's office that is subject to freedom of information requests, I might tell them not to release it or release it heavily redacted or just delay. How is this at all a democratic system? Snyder did it, and now Whitmer's doing it. And by the way, I'd like to see Whitmer's communications on Flint. I'd like to see her communications on the fact that she already knew our report that Snyder's administration manipulated the water testing data. She said it in an interview. She acknowledged the manipulated testing that we broke. I'd like to see her communications on the attorney general dropping all the charges and then charging Snyder with a misdemeanor. I'd like to see her communications, frankly, and her top officials with Snyder administration officials. I'm working on something behind the scenes, but apparently they were pretty chummy, Snyder and Whitmer's people, to the point where Snyder and his people worked behind the scenes to get her elected. Gee, Snyder's people work to get her elected. She gets elected. A misdemeanor against Snyder. By the way, we know about Andrew Cuomo and him killing all these seniors in nursing homes. Well, if you follow Charlie LaDuff, a great Michigan reporter that we love here, and others, her nursing home policies during COVID killed people. But no, not only in Michigan do you not have access, you cannot do a FOIA on the governor, her top officials' communications within their office. But now, according to Whitmer's memo, if I put in a freedom of information request for top health officials' communications with top officials in the governor's office, the health department is subject to FOIA. Well, apparently the governor and her legal team can squash that. And no, you can't get it. So essentially, it's not only that the governor's office in Michigan is exempt from freedom of information laws, but by default, they're making other departments exempt. They're making other departments exempt if you can't request other departments' communications with the governor or her top officials. Gee, I wonder why we live in the United Corporations of America. This is not like a good government policy. This is straight up lack of transparency and probably corruption. Because obviously, why would Governor Whitmer's lawyer want access to any freedom of information request that involves her or her office. Why? Is there certain things you don't want out? So it's just amazing to me. It's amazing to me. You know, on the left, we always talk lesser of two evils and why we shouldn't subscribe to that. Obviously, Jen and I have gone extremely hard on Flint. Not going to sugarcoat it. It's a Republican governor that's mostly responsible. The Democratic president, Obama, is also responsible, but it's on Snyder. I think Whitmer plays a role not in causing it, but she has not improved it. You got Virginia Murphy right there in the chat. She's from Flint. Ask her what Whitmer has done for Flint. Ask anybody in Flint what Whitmer has done for Flint. But this is broader than just Flint. Do you think this kind of stuff's not going on elsewhere? Do you think even in states where the governor's office is subject to FOIA, where's the enforcement mechanism to make sure they are actually releasing all the documents that should be released as per FOIA? What is the mechanism for that? By the way, you have in one case, let me get it, Colin. Colin, if you could go to Intercept story on the water crisis we just broke. Pull that up. So not the Metro Times, the Intercept story inside the Flint water crisis cover up. I want to show you this too, because this is even more scandalous. Hold on. Hold on. So, all right. So this is from the Intercept version because they were slightly different. Lonnie Scott, if you could just search for that term, Colin. Lonnie Scott, executive director of the progressive organization Progress Michigan, told the Intercept, quote, "It's not entirely surprising to hear that top officials' phones lacked data or were wiped completely. Scott had seen something similar happen in 2014 when his organization, Progress Michigan, had submitted Freedom of Information Act or FOIA requests for State Health Director Jim Haveman's communications with Snyder's chief of staff." So again, the health department is not exempt from FOIA. This group, Progress Michigan, put in FOIA requests for Haveman, the health director's communications with Snyder's chief of staff. Totally within Michigan's FOIA laws that an outside department who is subject to FOIA, their communications with anybody in the governor's office should be available to journalists, activist groups. After Haveman resigned from his job in October 2014, just happened to resign head of the health department as Legionella was raging and the Snyder administration was covering it up. Progress Michigan discovered that his emails were deleted upon his resignation from his role. The health director deleted his emails when he resigned. Gee, we don't need to know what the health department head was saying, what he was writing, who he was talking to, what were they talking to about Flint for April 2014, May 2014, June 2014, July 2014, August 2014, September 2014, October 2014. 6 months after they switched the water crisis, while residents were showing rashes, losing hair, children with body rashes, brown water all over the city. We don't, no problem. We don't need to see the health director of Michigan's emails. He could just delete them and, no criminal penalty there. I mean, am I in the Twilight Zone? How is this allowed? And it's not just Republicans. Who the fuck knows what Whitmer is hiding? She's not subject to freedom of information. By the way, when she ran in 2018, she said she wanted to improve transparency in Michigan. She kind of left out make her office responsible to FOIA. And by the way, you think this isn't happening in your local community? You think your local city hall's keeping all their emails? You think they're releasing all documents related to FOIA? I could tell you as a journalist, half the time they charge you for these documents to the point where for us it's impossible. We've been quoted like $7,000 to $10,000 for some FOIA requests, or they just slow walk you. Delay, missing deadlines that they were supposed to respond, coming back to you, telling you need to change the search terms or change the parameters. Just delay tactic after delay tactic after delay tactic. And then finally responding, oh, well, we're denying this FOIA request based on bullshit reason. The New York Times might be able to afford those FOIA charges. Washington Post, same thing. Their lawyers might be able to get involved to help force government officials to. Unfortunately, independent outlets don't have those resources. But I got to tell you, you will not see the New York Times calling out Governor Gretchen Whitmer. You will not see the Washington Post. I doubt the Detroit Free Press, who, by the way, has ignored our bombshell Flint story for the last month and a half. Detroit News, Flint Journal, CNN, MSNBC. Nope. They're too busy showering her with love and affection. By the way, it's been reported Biden wanted her as vice president, but his advisors talked him into Kamala Harris based on, first black vice president, the moment we were in last year with George Floyd, all those things. But Biden wanted Gretchen Whitmer. That's been reported widely. That was his top choice. But let's just ignore that current Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who has not delivered anything for Flint. She said when she was running, she was going to reopen the water stations around Flint that were closed by Rick Snyder. Didn't do it. I have the former Flint mayor on the record saying she was excited when Whitmer's coming in because obviously Snyder wouldn't do anything for them. When she met with her, she wouldn't do anything for Flint. She said, I can't get you money to fix residents' interior home plumbing because there's Flint fatigue at the Capitol. Oh, there's Flint fatigue. They're tired of Flint. I'm just the governor. I can't do anything about it. That's not me. That was the mayor of Flint on the record that's what the governor said to her. Flint fatigue. Well, how do you think the people of Flint feel 7.5 years later? So you got one corrupt, in my view, criminal governor being charged with a misdemeanor, and you got a current governor being painted as, Mary, the mother of Jesus, by the New York Times and others. Go read the puff pieces they wrote about her. The new leader of the resistance. To me, trying to bury certain things from being made public. I wonder why. By the way, most times when a new administration comes in, they replace the previous administration's top figures, particularly when there's a massive government scandal and water crisis. Well, the last mayor of Flint, I spoke with her. She said, when I went to meet Governor Whitmer for the first time, I didn't need to be introduced to anyone on our staff because I knew all of them. They were all Snyder holdovers, health officials, environmental officials who were involved with the water crisis and cover-up were kept on by Gretchen Whitmer. I wonder why. And now her lawyers are basically telling other departments, don't release anything to the public without running it by us. I mean, if you live in Michigan, you should be at the Capitol protesting right now within safety and health with the pandemic. Frankly, if you live in other places, you should be looking into what your state's FOIA laws are, freedom of information. Who's exempt? Who's not exempt? Has there been any scandals? You could talk to local activist groups. You could talk to local open records experts, good government groups. They generally have them in most states. Because if you want to know why corruption thrives, it's because the elected representatives are allowed to bury their corrupt actions, their criminal actions, which in some cases are literally killing people. Would love to know what the communications are on COVID in the Whitmer administration, on nursing homes. Charlie LaDuff, a great journalist from Michigan, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. He's encouraged me he's encouraged me for years on Flint. I've, traded notes with him. He's broken several stories that Whitmer did very much the same thing that Governor Cuomo did here, fudging numbers on deaths in nursing homes, disastrous decisions on nursing homes. You hear anything about that in the media? Love to read her emails. Would love to read her emails with health department. Would love to read her top officials' emails with the health department, with nursing home executives. Apparently you can't, because the governor's lawyer is deciding what can be released and what cannot. People should be outraged. Let me read some super chats before we go into a nice Q&A. Double K, 1999, appreciate it. D Nord, $5. Roseanne Robiliabla, we can make sense of insanity. Oh, I read that one. Let me also tease for tomorrow. Tomorrow on Rockfin Wednesdays, if you don't know, we do a weekly exclusive on Rockfin. We're going to have Robbie Martin on. Robbie Martin, who does a podcast with Abby, brother and sister. Did a great documentary. On the war on terror and the lies that went into that. But we're going to have him on a subject on Rockfin that we would not be able to talk about here. There's a certain anniversary coming up, a momentous anniversary, a tragic anniversary on September 11th. And we're going to talk about that on Rockfin, where we won't be censored. Obviously, we're going to deliver facts. I'm not somebody who's a conspiracy theorist. I don't push things that I myself can't verify. I say what is my opinion versus what is fact. But there certainly are a lot of lies about that day and what led up to it that you're not going to hear in the coverage of the anniversary. So, and by the way, 9/11 families have sued for disclosure of communications with the United States government and Saudi Arabia. 9/11 families have asked Biden not to come to the anniversary. Chris, Jordan, you're going to get called a MAGA QAnon supporter for mentioning corruption in emails. Yeah, that's okay. What time will that be? Status Quo News. 4:30 Eastern. Tomorrow, Rockfin, Jen, myself, Robbie Martin. We are trying to grow on Rockfin. I know that, for a lot of folks, it's not possible. If it is possible, $9.99 a month. You could become a Rockfin premium member through Status Quo. You get access to other channels, premium content, Lee Camp, Graham Elwood. I think, who else is on there? Forget. A couple other good ones are on there. There's also a lot of kooky people on there too that are kind of crazy and right wing, but so be it. There's a lot of kooky, crazy people on YouTube too. But if you can, if we keep growing on Rockfin, it is going to substantially grow our revenue, which will help us cover things in the field. We are, I believe, almost at 100 premium members. And as I've told you, once we hit 100, our guarantee from Rockfin goes up. So please, sign up, rockfin.com/status quo. Let me take, and by the way, just to remind you, we haven't really pushed it that often. Hey, our main thing is Status Quo membership. Status Quo membership. So if you can sign up as a member, statusquo.com/join. We're going to do our monthly members call, I believe, maybe at the end of this week, if not early next week. So you get access to our members call and a lot of other good things. And you support us, which is also very helpful, because contrary to the people who constantly bitch that we beg for money, we don't have a money tree to pay for travel, food, equipment, flights, hotels, marketing costs, legal costs, paying freelancers. So yes, the way to pay for that without taking corporate fat cat money is building a small dollar subscriber army. And that's what we're trying to do. And we love our members. Let me read questions, comments, concerns before I go. Cynthia. Women to keep an eye on for sure. I just feel that Kamala Harris is a no-go for president. She doesn't have the ratings. She isn't very popular as vice president and seems to be in over her head. You know, Cynthia, I agree with you, but I actually think Biden and the Democrats kind of boxed themselves in here because the very identity politics that they unleashed for the last, 10 years, where you can't criticize a woman without being sexist. You cannot criticize a black person without being sexist or racist or whatever. Well, if they jump ship from Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, boy, you think the K-Hive is bad now? You, Biden, the Democratic Party, would be jumping ship from Harris, would be trying to boost up Buttigieg or somebody else to take over if Biden can't run again? Oh, boy. Would that identity politics blow back on them big time? Chris, I don't know if Jordan watches Breaking Points, but they had Michael Tracy on and thought he would get a laugh out of it. Oh, Jesus. Yeah. I'm a big fan of Crystal and Sagar, but can't say I'm a fan of Michael Tracy. Would love to come back on, though, with Breaking Points. Yeah, Michael Tracy. Yeah. I think his contrarianism was like cute 3 years ago. Actually made some decent points like 3 years ago. Now, I don't know what the fuck he's doing. I don't even follow his tweets anymore. They're so stupid. But they do seem to gravitate towards white grievance a little bit. They do tend to gravitate towards white grievance a little bit. Let's see. Put the 480 resolution on Rockfin to fix the buffering. Are you telling us that? Or users? Because Colin would have to answer that behind the scenes. Bigger, Carne Verde, bigger, better in a world that demands a society which defines the worth of the haves by the amounts of the population of the have-nothings. That's true. That is true. Also want to tell you a couple things going on. Right now, I'm working on something behind the scenes. I don't want to get into it, but it's good. It's very good. Also, don't want to hatch my chicken. What do they say? Hatch my chickens before they. I don't know. I'm very bad with these slogans. I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch. Is that it? But I've had some exciting interactions recently on something that I think could really bring in some dollars. Let's put it that way, from non-sleaze, not scummy corporations. So I'm excited about that. I'm also thinking about, I am a little burnt out. I was planning on taking, a couple days off, maybe a week off as the summer winds down. I'm burnt out from just the travel. The stories we broke recently took months of 6-7 days a week. But I am interested in maybe going to Buffalo, cover the Starbucks Union Drive, cover India Walton, the socialist mayor who's running. I'm also interested in possibly going to check out some of these Nabisco strikes and just possibly doing a whole reporting tour just on these strikes and union drives going on, because I just think it's crazy that it's not really being covered. It's not. I mean, look at all these YouTube channels that just fight each other all day, but give lip service to actual strikes and union organizing. So we'd love to do that, which is why we need to build our membership. None of this stuff is cheap. It all costs money. So now with Colin on board too, who's doing a great job. If you've noticed, the production is much better in the last few months. That's Colin. Colin and I are talking about some things kind of behind the scenes that he could work on that I think would be kind of must-see internet. So somebody also asked about Jen. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. She's not doing well. Not, she's not like dying, but long haul COVID is a bitch, and she's been suffering with it. So she's taking some time off. Credit card, Jordan. What happened to John Farina? Yeah, I don't want to get into it, but he was freelance, so it's not like we fired him. He was freelance, but we just stopped using him. I think John does great work. Eternally, I will give him praise as far as January 6th, which was incredible. And I hope he wins an award for it. And I hope his work is featured all over the country, all over the world. We got a documentary request from HBO recently to license it, which we're doing. And of course, plan on giving John a cut into that revenue. But things happen. Nothing scandalous, but we just unfortunately had some significant disagreements on some issues, which it is what it is. I don't think he's a bad person or anything like that, but had some disagreements on certain things that I've learned in this line of work happen with, whether it be reporters, whether it be with video journalists. He still does, you could check out his Twitter, his Instagram. He's still out covering things. But yeah, we just couldn't keep using him for things based on some fundamental disagreements. That it is what it is, but nothing like salacious or, we genuinely wish him well. I'm glad that he's still doing coverage of certain things. So that's that. It's two chickens in the hand is worth more than counting your eggs before they hatch. But which came first if you have egg on your face? Oh, I like that. Beauty and the diabetes. Mine seems to be getting better, so I thought yours would be too. Have Jen look into FLCC website. I don't know what the FLCC stands for, so you have to fill me in on that. Oh, we got another super chat. Jim, can you get Chris Hedges on to discuss political corruption within the state structure of government? Yeah, I've been fortunate. I think I interviewed Hedges like 3-4 months ago, but that's not a bad idea. I actually am particularly interested. I know he was on with Brianna Joy Gray recently, and I think that I actually agree with Chris Hedges on a lot. And I actually think what Chris Hedges has been saying is kind of in complete opposition to what the left has been doing recently. So yeah, I might try to have him on. Jordan, when will you build a studio like TYT? I don't have any plans to build a studio like TYT. I think one of the wonderful things about Status Quo is we're not centralized. Like, we don't all have to be in a studio together or the same city or town. I think kind of, as long as something is presentable, I think, a lot of outlets focus a little too much on production, not as much on what are you actually doing and your content. But first of all, we don't have the money for anything like that. And B, I don't really feel the need to open up a centralized office. Maybe one day if we explode and there's a lot more people, maybe that would change. But for now, not interested in that. Or emulating TYT, by the way, in any way. Delise Columbia, thank God, because I'm starting to think great minds do not alike. Well, you would have to start thinking about what makes a great mind. Because a lot of viewers, I think, that are following certain figures who don't actually have a great mind are just feeding them a bunch of bullshit. I think this studio looks really good, by the way. Shout out to Ty Bayless, our former cameraman, still my friend, who worked 3 days in a row to build this studio. It was a lot to build this studio, not only visually, but all the audio and lighting and all that. I've been told, Jordan, you need to put some powder on your face because it's a little too bright on your forehead. I refuse. So I hope the brightness on my forehead is okay to you. I just have a moral thing about wearing makeup. So I hope it's okay. Working home does save money and time. We will actually, we might, if we get some more revenue, we might spruce up Jen, her area, so it doesn't, so it kind of has more Status Quo logo in the back. It definitely needs a microphone, those kind of things. Now you look fine. Don't change anything. Well, my hair is, very quickly receding, but I appreciate that. All right, folks, I got a couple things to do. I really thank you to the super chats for watching. Thanks, Steve Grumbine. Again, tomorrow we'll be live exclusively on Rockfin at 4:30 Eastern. We will do a short live stream before that just to tease it. But it will be our Rockfin day. We will cut certain things from that live stream for YouTube if we can, because frankly, a lot of the discussions we're having on Rockfin we can't put here because we'll either get demonetized, kicked off, or whatever other dystopian, draconian things YouTube wants to do. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.